Hello everyone, this is Jason Merkel from Horizon Hobby, and we're out at the William Bennett RC Flying Field on the east side of Las Vegas today to show you guys the E-flite Habu SS 50mm. And the SS, by the way, stands for Super Sport. We'll talk about that here in a minute, but essentially this is a scaled down version of our very popular Habu STS 70mm and also the Habu SS 70mm EDF jets. So we scaled it down to this 50mm class size. This is actually our very first ever 50mm class EDF, and that's become somewhat popular the last few years, in large part because of the batteries that it can use. But real quick, I'm going to back up to the models we scaled it down from. So the Habu designs have been around for a long time. In fact, back in the kind of early part of the EDF days, the original Habu became a just an all-around bestseller. Everybody loved it, had a blast with it. It's one of the first EDFs for a lot of people a long time ago. So these newer Habu models, the STS was the original one that we updated, and that stands for Smart Trainer with Safe, was intended to be an EDF jet you can literally learn to fly RC on. So a lot of people that are interested in radio-controlled aircraft, they see RC jets fly or EDFs fly, and they go, man, that's what I want to do. So what we did is we sharpened our pencils and we came up with a design based on that original Habu platform that flew almost as easy as a typical high-wing trainer. Now, there's some slight nuances to it, but the truth is that Habu STS, especially with the help of an instructor, and most definitely if you spend plenty of time on the Real Flight RC flight simulator, you can actually learn to fly successfully with that airplane and then go right into other jets down the road. So from that aircraft, we then derived the Habu SS Super Sport 70mm. So it was the same airframe as that one. We put a little bit different power system in it. We made that one more 4S and 6S compatible, so it had more performance, more speed, more capability, and that made it a great first ever EDF for someone who already knew how to fly RC airplanes and wanted to make that transition into jets. That Habu SS 70mm was absolutely perfect for that. So we then scaled it down to what you see here, which is again the Habu SS 50mm. And what's nice about this class of model is it runs on a 3-cell 1300 up to a 3-cell 2200 milliamp LiPo battery. And that's great because a lot of people already have those batteries. Maybe you bought a ready-to-fly trainer and it came with that battery, it came with the DXS transmitter. Yes, you can actually use that DXS transmitter, by the way. But the nice thing about those 3-cell batteries is they're very plentiful, and if you don't have one, they're inexpensive. They're very easy to find. So on the low end, the 3-cell 1300, I flew with it earlier today with the landing gear installed. It's fantastic. CG is a little bit farther back. It flies a little bit lighter. Of course, because it's got less capacity, you do get less flight time. So with that battery, I got about 3.5 to 4 minutes. I'm flying pretty aggressively. Some people might get longer if they throttle back more. Now I will say that 1300 battery does help it feel a little bit lighter. It still has good power. It's pulling about 30 amps at full throttle. That 1300 is a great choice maybe if you're hand launching in particular. Let's say you're flying over a grass surface only, you can remove the landing gear on this and fly with that battery. It does great. The 3-cell 2200, that's my favorite battery. It does feel a little nose heavy to me. Now, some people may not mind that at all, but it works great. And it's nice that you can have that 1300 all the way up to the 2200. With the 2200, I was pulling about 33 amps, which, by the way, I'm seeing through my smart telemetry on my NX8 transmitter here. And I had a little bit more pep than the 1300 battery, and of course, more flight time. And so with that battery, I'm getting about 5 to 6 minutes, depending on how hard I fly. Now, some people might be able to throttle back and get upwards of maybe 7 or 8 minutes on that battery, even upwards of 10 minutes if you stretch it. I'll pop the canopy here and just show you real quick that battery installed in there. So you can see 3-cell 2200, it's a tight fit in there. I'm running a Spectrum 3S 2200 30C Smart LiPo battery today. You only need a 30C battery because again, it's only pulling about 32 amps, 33 amps, depending on the performance of your battery and the temperature and everything outside. And so again, good flight time, very good performance. You do not need a Smart LiPo battery, but the ESC does have an IC3 connector installed on it. So you just need an EC3 or an IC3 connector in order to connect to the ESC that it comes with. All right, put the hatch back on here. And so you guys could see it was a nice magnetic hatch, very easy to access. And so the nice thing about this aircraft is it does come in both a bind and fly basic version and a plug and play version. Both of those models come with the 50mm fan installed, the motor already installed, a 30 amp Smart Light ESC, and then also all of the servos all around are already factory installed. The bind and fly basic version adds in a Spectrum AR631 receiver, which is great because that receiver has AS3X, an optional use Safe Select. And on top of that, you also get that telemetry. So you get battery voltage telemetry, motor RPM, current draw of the power system, really good stuff right there on your compatible Spectrum Airwear equipped transmitter. So a DX series transmitter, an NX series transmitter, an IX series transmitter. Almost all those transmitters that have airwear have that feature of telemetry, which is absolutely fantastic. I'll talk a little bit more about that when I am flying. I'm using an NX8 today, which is a bit overkill for this model. The nice thing about this aircraft is, right out of the box, it's just a standard simple 4-channel aircraft. You've got throttle, you've got rudder, elevator, ailerons, and then if you have optional use AS3, or sorry, Safe Select enabled, you would need a 5th channel for that. So most of our 6-channel and above radios, of course, are more than you need for it. Real quick note on that. If you bought a ready-to-fly airplane or a ready-to-fly basic airplane, and you're buying this as your 2nd or 3rd airplane, you can indeed use that DXS transmitter that came with those models to fly this. That's a 7-channel transmitter. Now, it's a simple transmitter. It doesn't actually have a computer screen. It doesn't have all of the programming that you can do with a computer transmitter, but that radio in box stock form flies this model just fine. It even has the battery voltage telemetry LEDs, which is really, really cool. But if you use an NX, DX, an IX series transmitter, that's a computer radio, you get a little bit more information. So really cool. And you might have caught this, but I mentioned it does indeed have a functional rudder. Most 50mm class EDF models do not have a rudder. They do not have landing gear. They require you to hand launch. The nice thing about this model is we have both the functional rudder, the functional steerable nose wheel, and you can remove the landing gear very easily. It pops out of the bottom. There's one screw for the nose gear, and then you can hand launch and belly land on grass, which is fantastic. But we're flying on a hard surface today, so I'll show you some takeoffs and landings, of course, on the pavement. But I really love that you have that option with this aircraft. And the nice thing is, because it's so small, you can actually fly this in some larger sports fields, maybe a couple soccer fields, depending on your experience level. So the more experienced that you are, the smaller the space you can fly it in. If you're a low-time pilot, not very skilled, I strongly recommend going to a larger space, of course. That's very, very important. And then let's talk about the skill level. So I'm a very experienced pilot. I've been flying a long time. This thing is a blast. For an experienced pilot, it has good performance, good speed, good thrust, pretty darn good flight time. It's just no hassles. The nice thing about no hassles is I don't have to stress about, the performance of the power system or retracts or flaps and all those extra things. It's just a no hassles, throw it in my car and go EDF model. That's what I really love about all of the Habu SS models. And then if you're a low-time pilot, so let's say you just mastered your trainer aircraft, you're looking to get into jets, maybe you started with a Hobby's own Aero Scout or a Carbon Cub S2. This is a nice second airplane. Now, it will be a little bit more difficult to fly than a propeller-driven airplane, but as long as you buy the Buy and Fly Basic version and you have that option to use Safe Select enabled, it will help you. I would say in a perfect world, I'd probably still recommend to have maybe an airplane in between. A favorite second airplane for me is the E-flite T28 1.1 meter, which we'll link to in the description down below. But you can, again, go from potentially a trainer aircraft that has that DXS transmitter, maybe use a 3-cell 2200 battery for it, and you can use that same battery, same transmitter for this model. And with Safe Select, you can succeed in this being your second or third airplane, and most definitely your first EDF model. So if you are already an experienced pilot, you've never flown an EDF, this is a great first EDF. If you're a low-time pilot, you're looking to get an EDF, this is a great first EDF, a good second or third airplane as well. And the nice thing about it is it just has great handling. And I mentioned before, no flaps, no retracts. In this class of model, that's not uncommon. It's a pretty small aircraft. You don't have the option to add those to it. It would be too heavy to fly really well. But again, the nice thing is you do have that functional rudder. You've got ailerons, elevator. It has all the capability to perform basic aerobatics. Loops, rolls, inverted flying, point rolls, slow rolls, the whole shebang. All the basic aerobatics are easy to accomplish with this airplane. And then one nice thing is another option that you have if you have enough channels. So you need a minimum of a 6-channel transmitter, but you can also then enable the motor reversing. So I have that enabled today. The nice thing about motor reversing is when I'm on the ground, I can actually taxi backward. Now, it doesn't perform particularly well taxiing backward, this particular model, but also when you're coming in for a landing, if you roll out a bit long, you can enable that and activate that motor reversing and throw in reverse thrust, and that'll help slow down the EDF model. This is becoming more common in a lot of our EDF aircraft, and what's nice about it is that, again, it helps you from going too far, too long, down the runway, potentially off the end of the runway, kind of like brakes, although granted in this particular model, because it is so small, it's not super duper effective, but I do have that enabled. You can do that if you have the Buy and Fly Basic version and a Spectrum transmitter. You can enable it through the forward programming in the transmitter. There are instructions out there that show how to do that. We can link to those down in the description in that first pinned comment below as well. But before we go too much farther, let's go ahead and get it into the air. I see a couple other guys are flying now, but we'll mind them, of course. This is a very active RC flying field, which is pretty cool. A lot of these guys have seen this model perform today, and they were absolutely blown away by its performance. So real quick, before I taxi all the way out, I'm gonna show you that motor reversing in action. So you can see I can back up. That's full power, it's not moving very fast. You know, the reversing is not super efficient on this particular model, but it does work, and it is kind of fun and kind of neat to play with. All right, got a really beautiful Spitfire making an inverted low pass. And then we're gonna set up for a takeoff. So I do have the optional use safe select enabled, but first I'm gonna start the flight with AS3X turned on, and I'm gonna show you a little bit of what this aircraft can do in the box stock form. Here we go. Take off, roll, and pull. And I really like that orange and gray trim scheme on the white. It really pops very nicely. It helps with the visibility. The bottom looks very different than the top. Oh, there's a nice little UMX airplane. Check out the vertical that it has, just on a 3-cell battery. A lot of 50mm class models are 3S compatible. There's even some that are out there that are 4S compatible, and they needed that to get performance that's close to even what we have with a 3S here, which is absolutely fantastic. Speed is pretty darn good. Check it out. I mean, it's moving. Not bad at all. And again, check out the vertical. Really good for an EDF jet. Not unlimited by any stretch, but very, very good. Let's do another somewhat downwind pass. There's not really much wind right now, but you can see it's kind of cooking. All right, now let's show you some of the aerobatics it can perform. So again, inverted flight, no problem. Bring it by, kind of low. If you guys can see it okay. Does inverted circuits, no problem, all day long. And I'm pretty much flying at full throttle right now, which is not what everybody does, but with an EDF jet, it's not super uncommon to fly it around fast like that. All right, I'll bring it into a nice big loop here. It has so much power, it can do pretty darn big loops. Unlike a lot of EDF aircraft, throttle back on the backside, bring it around. A little bit of a turnaround maneuver here. Bring it back by, and let's do a point roll. 4-point roll. And that's the nice thing about having the rudder on this. That's actually a possibility. You can kind of cheat and do point rolls if you don't have a rudder, but they don't necessarily look as good as what you can do if you have one. And then on top of that, because we have the rudder, we can also perform knife edge, which is really nice with a sport jet in particular. Check that out, knife edge. Pretty darn cool. But one of the best aspects of these Habu SS STS designs is the slow speed performance. So I'm bringing it by on full throttle, chop the power, glide it around, and I'm gonna slowly bring the power back in, and I'm gonna come up to about half power. I'm just gonna fly it around at half throttle. Actually, I'm a little less than half now, and I'm staying in the air, no problem. Pulling a little elevator to keep the nose up. But look at that, it's very well mannered. Not flying nearly as fast as it was at full throttle, of course. This will make it a lot more manageable. In fact, I'm gonna go ahead and turn on that safe select. So now with safe on and about half throttle, it's really easy to fly it around. So of course, safe select, when it's turned on, has bank angle limits. So right now, I've got the stick basically in the corner. All the way in the corner, I've got full left aileron, full up elevator. I'm making a pretty tight turn. And if I let go of the stick, it goes to level. So safe select has those bank angle, pitch angle limits, that self-leveling, which is very helpful for low-time pilots. Of course, if you're an experienced pilot, you probably don't even need to use this. That's okay. It's optional use. But the nice thing is, and I'll show you, even as an experienced pilot, let's say I've got my AS3X on, which I do now, and I'm just doing some crazy snaps and spins and weird maneuvers, and I'm like, oh no, I don't know what my orientation is. I'm gonna flip safe on, and look, it goes right back to level all by itself. And then I can put the stick in the corner, bring it around, and regain my orientation or my composure. So let's show you that again. I'm gonna go into AS3X, put sticks in a corner, let it come out, and I'm gonna flip it to safe, and look at it go right back to level. Hands off right now, guys. It's that stable with safe on. Pretty impressive. Now, I know some guys have complained that when they have safe on, they don't have enough control authority. Important note, if you ever fly with safe select on, have full high rates turned on. Use your high rates. See, when I've got high rates, I can bank almost 90 degrees and pull a really tight turn. This is the stick all the way in the corner with safe on and high rates. Watch this. If I go to my low rates, which are half, now look, it's taking me way longer. I can't bank as much. I can't pitch as much, and look at how much larger my turn radius is. There's high rate, low rate. So if my low rate in this case is 50% of my high rate, I only get half of the bank angle. So that's very important to keep in mind. And it's not just this aircraft. Every aircraft that has safe or beginner mode, I strongly recommend always flying with high rates on in that mode. So I'm gonna go back to AS3X. I've got the throttle off and I'm gonna show you some of the really low speed handling capability of this airplane. So bring in the power, bring up the nose a little bit. This is what we call high alpha to some degree. It's not very high alpha, but you can see I've got the nose up. I'm using the rudder and the ailerons plus some elevator to bring it around in a nice slow turn. And look at how slow you can fly it. That's flying about as slow as a lot of EDFs that have flaps can fly, and I don't even have flaps. And then a testament to just how phenomenal this Habu SS airframe is you can still maneuver, you can still make turns. It's important though when you're high alpha in particular, flying slow, use that rudder to bring the nose around. You don't want to let that get, you don't want to let it stall. You want to bring the nose around, keep it down. And you guys are hearing my timer has already said I'm 1 minute over, but I'm actually flying down to my low voltage alert on my transmitter. So because I have the telemetry in this bind and fly basic version with my Spectrum transmitter, I can fly it around until that alert comes on my transmitter, which is just before the low voltage cutoff of the ESC kicks in. But before we get there, I'm gonna show you guys a quick touch and go, show you just how slow and easy this thing can land. Now, because I don't have flaps and because this is a pretty lightly loaded EDF model, it floats. So I've got to bring it in longer and flatter than a lot of EDF jets. So I'm gonna just kiss those mains, punch the throttle and go around. I'm gonna roll on takeoff just because we can with this model. It's so well mannered. Rip it back down the runway and I'm gonna do another landing real quick. So again, with this model, oh, and there is that low voltage alert on my transmitter telling me my battery voltage is low. My LVC of my ESC hasn't kicked in yet, so I'm gonna go ahead and land it and bring it to a full stop this time. Just kiss those mains, bring the nose up. Oh, look at that. I'm gonna enable that reversing. Look at that, it slows it down. So it was rolling out and now it's backing up just a little bit. And again, the reversing on this one is not particularly efficient. It's not a very big fan and the inlets are kind of small, but you can see it does indeed have the capability for motor reversing. So there you guys have it. The E-flite Habu SS 50mm, a really, really great first ever EDF aircraft for experienced pilots, even for low time pilots. An absolute blast to fly. Check out the size. It's really not that big, which is nice because again, you can fly it at a large park, a large soccer field area, or of course at your local flying field. And again, you can remove the landing gear very easily. In fact, we're gonna link to a video down in the description and in that first pinned comment below that shows it in action with the gear and with the gear off, with some cool fun hand launches and some belly landings. It is capable of all those things. Be sure to check out our website for more information. And again, in that description and pinned comment below, link to our website and link to other videos as well. Thank you.